You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
This is the very first show of 2020. I appreciate you, whether you are a new listener or a long-time listener of the Cabral Concept, for coming back, tuning in for this new year. We have so much in store for you, starting today with this Wellness and Weight Loss Wednesday topic of how to burn more fat this new year by simply balancing your blood sugar to a greater degree. One of the best things that you can do, not just for weight loss and burning body fat, but for your overall wellness, which leads to greater anti-aging in your life and reversing the aging process, is by balancing your blood sugar. Because if you think of nothing else, yes, blood sugar, excess blood sugar will be most likely stored as body fat. But beyond that, there is massive free radical damage and inflammation created by spikes in blood sugar. So I want to go in depth with you today. This is factor 3 out of the 5 factors of how to balance your metabolism to a far greater degree and how to boost that metabolism. So as we've been talking about over the last 2 shows, those shows are 14-19 previous to this, and then also 14-12. So factor 1 for thermogenesis is 14-12, and also on 14-19, that was factor 2 on rebalancing your hormones. So here's why this is so important. I do not want you to go into this new year believing that you are going to lose the weight and keep it off simply by exercising or simply by reducing your calories. That's not going to do it. And the reason is that you will plateau with that approach, or you will yo-yo back up to your current weight or higher than you ever have been with that approach. I want to look at this from a much more in-depth and smarter-based perspective that all of us need for 2020. And I need to be reminding everyone in our community, myself, our coaches, that we need to look at this from a multifactorial standpoint. So if you're dealing with the inability to keep the weight off, or you need to burn the body fat in the first place, you're struggling to either keep the weight off or you're struggling to lose the weight in the first place, what we need to do is say, okay, eating good quality food matters. There's no doubt about that, right? We've been talking about that for years now on the show. So that matters, and that might be your first step, which is great. We'll talk about a little bit about that today. Okay, and you need to move your body. So that means, as a human, we need to work up to 10,000 steps per day walking. And then, yes, we should exercise more on top of that. No doubt about it. Yes, okay, so we have that. But what happens when you stop losing weight using those 2 things alone? That's when you begin to understand, or actually most people just get then frustrated saying, I could never lose the weight. Everyone in my family, is always overweight. All of my friends can lose weight, but I can't. You start to get into the victim and the why me mentality. And I get it, because there has never been another way presented to you. So what I want to do is say, listen, the exercising and the diet, they matter without a doubt. They are the 2 heavy hitters. But when you struggle then to take off the weight, maybe like a friend or a coworker or someone else has, it's always about metabolism. Remember, and I'm going to keep going back to this because it's the truest analogy. If 2 people are, let's say, 5'6", 5'10", the height doesn't matter, and you weigh 30 pounds different, 40 pounds different, and you eat the same food, or maybe you even eat less than the person who's lighter than you, what gives? Is it calories? Well, apparently not, because you're eating less of them. You might even be exercising more. So what is it? Well, it always goes back to the metabolism. So the metabolism is multifactorial. We talked about it before, thermogenic effect. Again, go back, check out 14-12, that episode. You can always just go to stephencabral.com/podcasts, and you can find all previous podcasts there, or just always go to stephencabral.com/ and then type in the show number. So hormones are huge. We talked about those last week. What are your fat-burning hormones? You need to know those, and you need to master them. There's no doubt about that. Well, the third factor out of the 5 factors that we use to help people take the weight off and keep it off is something called balancing healthy levels of blood sugar. This is different than diabetes, but this also can prevent you from potentially getting diabetes in the future. Again, we are not here to, as they say, diagnose, cure, or treat disease. What we do is we look at the underlying root causes. You don't typically get type 2 diabetes without issues surrounding nutrition, exercise, quality of food, etc. We're going to talk about those things today. Okay, so let's dive right into it. I want to give you some really tangible ways to balance the blood sugar. Now, again, I want to go back because I want 2020 to be this for you. I really want this for you. And I do the same for myself. So I try to practice what I preach and preach what I practice. So what I do now is I buy a stack of books on a topic. I go in depth because I don't want to say, oh, okay, I get it. This person's talking about this. Maybe it's psychology. Maybe it's energy-based medicine, something that I'm more new to, right? That I'm not that well-versed in. Well, I want to read this from every vantage point. And what I want you to do in 2020 is go back, listen to the previous Cabral Concept podcast, read additional books, whatever works for you. But I want to go in depth because I want you to know that whatever you're struggling with is something you can overcome. And typically you overcome it with two things. One is the correct model or blueprint to follow. And number two, it is through actual experience. So that means you've read it. It's like reading about playing the piano or reading about playing poker, okay? So you understand it, you get it, you know how the game is played, but now you actually have to play the game in order to figure out, oh, this is different than reading a textbook. I mentor a lot of naturopathic doctors, medical doctors moving to functional medicine. And I say, you have the education. You went to a great school. You're obviously very intelligent. Things are different, though, when you work with regular people in the real world. It is different than everything you learned about in your textbooks. Now, you need that knowledge, but now it's applied knowledge. That is what we're talking about. So first, learn, go in depth, and then do. Or do and continue to learn. That's what it's all about. Don't wait for the perfect time. Start now. Again, even if you study, let's say you read 100 books on one topic. You're an expert on that topic. There's no doubt about it, okay? So, but let's say that you did that. I'm guaranteeing you, almost guaranteeing you, that you still wouldn't get it right the first time you applied it in the real world. And that is because there are a lot of nuances that you can't plan for. So learn and do, course correct as needed, recalibrate, and then get back on a new path. That's it. And continue and continue and continue. You will learn and grow, learn and grow, learn and grow. That's what it's all about. Okay. And you will achieve your goal. Well, let's talk about blood sugar balancing, because if you're someone that has a higher level of blood sugar, you're not tapping into body fat, or not the greatest amount that you should be. The body loves to burn fuel in the most efficient way possible. The body always works on efficiency. It wants to do things at the least cost to the body, and it does that for survival-based mechanisms. If blood sugar is elevated, it is very happy to be using the glucose in your bloodstream for fuel. But while it's using sugar as fuel, it is not using body fat as fuel, most likely. Now, again, your body fat is never perfectly tapped into your body is no longer, is not fully tapped into body fat or fully tapped into sugar. And there are other energy systems in the body as well, but we're not going to get into that today. Okay, so here's the thing though. We're going to speak in generalities because generalities are fine for today's conversation. But here's what happens. Let's say that your body is not as carbohydrate tolerant yet. The more carbs you eat, especially process-based, the more you will gain weight, only because you are not carb adapted. That's a term I'm going to be using over and over for 2020 because everybody talks about becoming fat adapted. Well, here's the thing. You don't really need to become fat adapted if you're carb adapted, because you can burn glucose very, very easily as fuel, and it gets brought into your cells easily. People that are not carbohydrate adapted, all the sugar remains outside the cell. Well, what happens is then it's in the bloodstream, and if it's in the bloodstream, well, that can be easily used then as fuel. What we need to do is you want to be able to eat carbohydrates. Most people enjoy carbohydrates. Some people, I don't know, maybe they don't, but most people enjoy carbs, okay? And carbs are not the enemy. But what happens is when we eat them, we need to make sure that our pancreas is producing just the right amount of insulin so that it unlocks the cells to allow the sugar and glucose to get in. That includes your muscles, and it includes glycogen stores in the liver. These are places where glucose is naturally supposed to go and actually be stored up for a rainy day. So when we get into the fight or flight, it can easily be broken down and we can use that as immediate energy. Okay, so let's take a little step back. We want to become carb adapted, but that doesn't mean that you can eat a lot of carbs right out of the gates. It's why people do well on a lower carbohydrate diet when they start an exercise program, right? Without a doubt, and I'm in total agreement. When we do our 21-day detox, when we do our Achieve Equilibrium detox, also called the Dr. Ball detox, we go lower carb. There's no doubt about it. But you know what? We don't go lower carb past 21 days. Then we begin to integrate those carbohydrates back in. We also teach this in our Fatlocity system, which is not just a nutritional supplement. It is an entire 2.5-hour educational course that you can take with you for the rest of your life so that you learn not just how to lose the weight. Yes, I want you to lose the weight, but I want you to be able to keep it off. And then I want you to be able to teach others in your family because most likely they have close to the same genetics. So what we need to do is learn. And then what we need to do with that education is then teach. Learn and teach, learn and teach. And I found that as you teach, you learn it better yourself because you get to hear it twice. And it's a really nice way to do this. So it's what I want for you. There's no doubt about it. So we need to go a little lower on carbs in the beginning. But the problem is if you never add the carbs back in and you don't do it strategically, what happens is your body never becomes used to or able to process those carbohydrates efficiently. So over the course of 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 12 weeks, we are turning over new red blood cells. And during that time, as long as we've done the right things, we hope to have a whole healthier cell that has a different cell membrane that is then more open and receptive to insulin, which is the hormone that either helps the sugar get in the cell or it stores it as a body or as body fat, which we'll also call adipose tissue sometimes. So this is crucially important. Okay, so we have carbohydrates, we start lower, and then we ease them back in. Okay, what's another thing? I talked about the exercise. Yes, it's super important, but you don't need to start with the boot camp if you're not doing your walking. I love high intensity interval training. It is, without a doubt, the most effective way to burn body fat with nutrition, but we also want to make it well-rounded. We've spoken about that in the past. I talk about this so much, I don't want to spend a lot of time there. I want to spend some time on things that you may not have heard as much about before, and that is I want you to get in a little bit more protein, okay? A little bit more protein just to start even, because that protein is going to lead to satiation. Spoke about this as well a little bit last week, the week before, but protein enables you to feel full for hours, and that's what we need. If you are hungry 60 to 90 minutes, an hour to an hour and a half after a meal, you most likely did not get enough protein at that meal. And especially our pitta body types, those people have a much stronger appetite. Get your protein in. It is a higher thermogenic food. The other thing I want you to do is increase fiber at your meal, okay? Increase fiber at the meal. Yes, that comes from carbohydrates, but here's the nice thing. Whether you're high carb, medium carb, low carb, moderate carb, whatever you want to call it carb, here's what you need to know. Fiber is going to keep you satiated and better regulate blood sugar. Okay, so what does that mean? And again, we're talking about healthy levels of blood sugar. So your fiber is found predominantly in vegetables. Now, yes, it's in some starches, and yes, it's in fruit as well. But if we're talking about how do we get the most nutrient-dense foods with the lowest amount of calories, the lowest glycemic index, and the most fiber, we go with our vegetables. So vegetables have to go up. What have we been talking about for the last 4 years in the Cabral concept? 7 to 9 servings of fruits and veggies every single day, with the predominance of those being vegetables, okay? So if you're all veggies right now, good for you. Totally fine. No problem with that. I don't have an issue with it in the beginning. Here's what I want you to do, though. Lots of fiber, 7 to 9 servings. How do we do that? Over 3 meals? Well, 2 to 3 cups a meal, right? 2 to 3 cups a meal gives you somewhere around 7 to 9 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. Now, not only are you getting enough fiber, about 30 grams to 35 grams per day from men and women, that's the minimum, you are going to be a whole lot healthier. Fiber has been shown to help with cardiovascular disease. It's been shown to help with diabetes. It's been shown to help with high blood pressure. We want that fiber. It's good for the gut. If you get bloated, eating vegetables, cook them. That's an Ayurvedic thing as well. We'll be talking actually about Ayurvedic times of the day for burning body fat tomorrow as well. So definitely check out that show. But today, what we say is if someone's having digestion issues with veggies, we cook them, okay? Help to break down some of that cellulose. The fiber will still be there, but we're breaking down some of the cellulose wall, basically the little cell-based, almost it looks like veins through the food, right? So it's those little fibers. Well, here's what else though. If you are getting bloated from veggies or legumes, super important that you run the Candida metabolism and vitamins test. Absolutely important that you run. If you only run one test, run that one for gut function. Here's why. You very well may have yeast overgrowth, fungal overgrowth, or bacterial overgrowth. If that's the case, we need to remove that, or when you eat these good foods for you, you will get bloated, and you may end up with the symptoms of gut-based issues, which can be autoimmune, it can be skin, it can be brain fog, headaches, migraines, you name it. Remember, 90% of all dis-ease of the body starts in the gut, and I might even go a higher number than that. So here's what I want you to do. Run that lab. Remember, let's start the year fast. Let's get right out of the gates and get to our goals. Let's not wait till September. Let's start now. Okay, so that's what I'd like you to do. If you get bloated from eating the highest quality, meaning like highest quality food in the world is vegetables. That's what contains your plant-based phytonutrients, your antioxidants, things that we can't replicate. We can't replicate them in a lab. It's just not going to happen. Even we have our daily fruit and vegetable blend. That's actually juiced fruits and vegetables, taking out the sugar, giving you the nutrients from it. But still, it does not have the fiber. So you still want those whole foods. Remember, the biggest part of your diet is what you eat. It is important. So remember, let's look at that, okay? So super important, 30 to 35 grams of fiber per meal, a minimum ideally of 10 grams per meal. And then we have our veggies leading the charge, okay? If you get bloated, check out what's going on in that gut. Remember, it's not just about the weight loss, it's also about overall health. The other thing is people are so chronically dehydrated that they believe they're hungry more often than they are. So what I want you to do is I want you to make sure that you are drinking half your body weight, talking about pounds, in ounces of water per day. Smoothies count, shakes count, herbal tea counts. Coffee, black tea, caffeinated beverages do not. Okay? Still want a lot of fresh water, but you need to get it in there. So if people, especially out of the gates, are not just drinking plain water, get in that water. All right, so what does that mean? Well, it means for the typical 160-pound person, well, we have then 80 ounces of water needed for the day. We divide that by 8-ounce glasses. We get 10 glasses for the day, okay? And you can do that. You want to drink it around meals. I podcast on all of these topics in depth. So how much water do you need for the day? There's a podcast on that. If you ever can't find a podcast, best thing to do is ask at cabralsupportgroup.com. That will link you to our free Facebook group. I think there's 8,000 members in there currently, and our health coaches who honestly, they're on our team to answer your questions free of charge. Take advantage of that. And then your community is right there as well. I mean, it's 8,000 plus people. Maybe when you're listening to this, 10,000 plus people from around the world who share the same goals as you, the same aspirations. So definitely connect with them. All right, just a couple more I want to give you for today. Super, super important is I'm going to talk about this next week. I'm going to talk about cortisol and how it affects your blood sugar. If you ever want to see my presentation on that, just go to stephencabral.com/BRMI. So BRMI, that is a video presentation I did. I'm on the scientific advisory board for the Bioregulatory Medicine Institute. It was a free video presentation I did for other doctors and practitioners. It shows how even in a lower carbohydrate diet, even in lower calories, you can actually spike blood sugar and gain body weight and inflammation. So check out that if you'd like. All right, a couple more I want to give you. In a little bit, I'll be talking about sleep as well, not today. I want you to also increase foods that help you better control blood sugar. One thing I talk about all the time is adding a half a teaspoon of cinnamon. You can add more if you'd like. You can add less if you'd like. But if you're adding cinnamon to your shake in the morning, people love it with the daily nutritional support, whether it's the vanilla, which gives it that nice vanilla cinnamon taste people love, or they're doing it with the chocolate. Either way, it can be a nice way to help with blood sugar balance. Another great one is magnesium. How many people are out there are magnesium deficient, at least from a functional medicine standpoint? So many, and you can't just look at your typical blood work that you do with your PCP to look at magnesium levels. It's not the gold standard for looking at that. Run a minerals and metals test, run a more in-depth red blood cell analysis, but you want to look at those magnesium levels. There's no doubt about it. Another great nutrient to look at is vanadium or vanadyl sulfates. It's another great one, like I said, for being able to better regulate healthy levels of blood sugar. These things work. I mean, clinically proven. We know that they work. We are going to debut this tomorrow, but that's why I want people to know. So our Fatlocity system is going to be the game changer. It's groundbreaking work in the weight loss and metabolic fields. And it is because it's based on 25 demonstrated clinical research studies, none of them by us. These are all independent third parties. And we have the dosages in order to prove that. We have 400 micrograms of chromium in there. We have vanadyl sulfate. We have things to better regulate thermogenesis, to better regulate thyroid, to better regulate estrogen dominance, to help with sleep. I mean, amazing things are going on with this. It is the gold standard starting tomorrow when this debuts. But what we do is we help people at a foundational, much deeper level than just saying, oh, well, we're just going to put in these things to help burn more calories. Sure, that's part of it. And we have items in there too to burn more body fat or to consume, to boost your metabolism through thermogenesis. That's great. Nothing wrong with that at all. There's no doubt about it. I talk about that and I'll talk about that in a couple weeks for a different factor. But when you sleep at night, you're burning over 300 calories overnight. What if we could increase that? Well, why not take advantage of that? Now remember, when this debuts tomorrow, it's going to be a little bit different. You have to understand, we've created the first ever day and night fat burning formula that helps you burn body fat 24/7, so 24 hours a day. And I'm not just saying that, like, it's actually clinically demonstrated to do these things, and it uses trademarked ingredients for all of these things. But here's something that I want to go deeper on. When it comes to blood sugar, chromium, we have Gymnema sylvestre or Gymnema leaf extract, GS4, trademarked, patented version that we use. Anybody can use this. But again, we put together this formula as a unique proprietary system that's been proven to help with balance healthy levels of blood sugar. So here's the thing. To burn body fat, besides just calories in, calories out, you want to give your body the best chance possible. But that's also why we want people to know it's not just about taking these nutritional supplements. The nutritional supplements are going to be the game changer in helping you bust past plateaus. But what we do is we include over 2 hours of video courses in there in order for people to learn how to use the de-stress protocol specifically for weight loss. What is the diet plan you need to follow? What about exercise? What about customizing exercise for you? That's in there. What about stress reduction? Toxin removal. How does it work with the detox? Can you do that? Can you not? What about rest and sleep? What about emotional balance? What about emotional eating? Or how about supplement protocols beyond the Fatlocity system? Because I talk about those too. And then what about the success mindset of how we work backwards using Monday's podcast in order to achieve all of our goals? So here's what I want from you. I want you to, whenever you're using a nutritional supplement, whenever you're beginning a blueprint or a plan, whenever you're learning about something like balancing blood sugar, I want you to always ask why. So why does this work? How does this work? How will this be used to my advantage? Like, that's always what you want to be thinking. Go deeper. Go deeper. Don't just do the program your friend is doing. Use one that is backed by science, but also rooted in 5,000 years of ancient healing history. Traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, Egyptian medicine, Greek medicine. Like, look at all of these principles that we've used over the years. Many of those herbs are in this Ayurvedic and functional medicine formula, the day and night fat burning formula. So that's all. I just want you to start to think from a greater standpoint, not blindly accepting. I never want you to blindly accept anything I give you either. Okay. I don't want that at all. I want you to say, okay, I get it. This is why I'm doing this, or whoever's doing this. And you can say, now I know why it's going to work, and here are the tweaks I can make to customize it for me. That's what it's always about. So hopefully this has been helpful today. I really want you to achieve all of your goals in the new year. And I know that if you're 20, 30, 100 pounds overweight, by losing that weight, you're simply going to have more energy. You're going to have more vitality. You're going to have more zest for life. You're going to want to do more, and you're going to want to reach that potential that I know that you have. So use this as your jumping off point. Again, there's 2+ hours of specifics of how to lose weight in the Fatlocity system. If it seems like the right fit for you, great. It debuts tomorrow. If not, that's okay. I'm going to keep doing additional podcasts, and today will be all of the show notes. So head on over to stevencabral.com/1426. And this was a Wellness and Weight Loss Wednesday. I've been now recording the Cabral Concept for 4 years. That means there's somewhere around, I have no idea the math on that. I shouldn't have tried to do the math in my head, but there's somewhere around 200 shows on weight loss at the Cabral Concept. So remember, I will always give you all of my information for free, what I've seen work in the real world. You can always go to stevencabral.com/podcast. Check out the previous shows. We're here to help. Ask your question at cabralsupportgroup.com. Comment on any one of my Instagram posts, especially the current ones. I see those comments. I love connecting with people. Thank you so much. Have an amazing 2020, and I'll be back tomorrow with more tips on burning body fat. Take care. Ever wonder what the best sauna, blue blockers, sleep trackers, wake lights, salt lamps, or other health gadgets are? Or what about the top non-toxic mattresses, sheets, soaps, bath products, toothpaste, and cookware? Or would you like to know the cleanest choices for hemp parts, meal delivery services, supplements, and much more? I personally curated, researched, and now created a resource page of all of my top picks that continues to grow each week. These are the exact products I use in my own life, with my family, in my private practice, and they're the ones I trust. To find out all of my up-to-date recommendations and all the details, simply head on over to stevencabral.com/resources.